Hi guys, I'm Phil Town and it's Rule 1 investing time. We're going to talk about free cash flow today. Now, free cash flow is incredibly important to a Rule 1 investor. This is probably the most critical thing we can look at. And interestingly, it's not a number you can come up with very easily. It's not part of generally accepted accounting principles. So companies, when they form their financial statements, don't have a line on there for free cash flow. And yet, this is a number you've got to know before you go out there and you buy companies, because free cash flow is what you would actually get back in your pocket if you own the whole company and you get to collect the money. Okay, so let me give you an example. Let's say you own a laundromat and you're going to have to replace washing machines from time to time. So what happens is you get in all this money and then you got to pay out this money to replace the machines and stay in business. Now, what you've got left after you pay your employees, pay for the new washing machines, pay for all your detergent, clean the place, pay for your rent, what you've got left after you replace everything you need to do to stay in business, what you've got left is free cash flow. Now, interestingly, there are lots of businesses that have really good earnings. They've got net earnings, but they don't have any free cash flow. They chew up all of their earnings just to stay in business because they've got to go rebuild their plant. They got to go put stuff back that they burned up. In fact, the car companies are really good examples of companies that have a lot of trouble getting free cash flow. Because why? Because they constantly have to put in new molds. They constantly got to do more R&D, constantly got to build the next model. They destroy the old model. They got to build new warehouses. They got to build new plants. And all of that sucks up free cash flow. Now, free cash flow is hugely important for two reasons. The first is that's the money we'd get if we own the whole company that we can then go allocate anywhere we want. And second, it's the money that the company can allocate where it wants as well. So how do we get, or what's our best way to look at free cash flow? Is first off to find out is there any, and second, to understand what the company's doing with it. So how do we figure this out? Real simple. You look at the cash flow statement. Okay, free cash flow comes off the cash flow statement in a real simple piece of math. You take on the cash flow statement, you look and there's a line there, usually in bold, that says operating cash flow or cash flow from operations. All right, take that line. You'll notice it's different than the net income, which is usually the top line of the free cash flow or top line of the cash flow statement. You take that line, cash flow from operations, and you subtract from it the purchase of property and equipment line, which is just down below it a few lines. So let's say that operating cash flow or cash flow from operations is $1 million, and this company has $100 that it has to pay out in terms of property and equipment. So what that means is we've got $1 million coming in cash flow, and we're only paying out $100 to actually stay in business. So we end up with $999,000 and some change that we get to go out and do anything we want with. We can take it as an owner, allocate it to other businesses. We can put it back into the company to grow the company. That would be a company that has awesome free cash flow. Now, same example, the company's got $1 million of cash flow from operations, but it's spending $990,000 on property, plant, and equipment. In other words, replacing stuff to stay in business. In which case, we only have $10,000 of free cash flow, and all of a sudden our investment doesn't look as good as when we look at just the net earnings. Now, what happens with Berkshire Hathaway is that Warren Buffett built a company that is a cash flow monster. He's bought all of these little companies that are private companies or public companies that produce dividends, and that money comes in the form of free cash flow right up to Berkshire for Buffett to reinvest into other things. We want to be able to do exactly the same thing. We want free cash flow to come unto us from our companies. Now, the thing is, we don't own the whole company. So we're going to get free cash flow allocated to us in one of three ways. Number one way, and probably the favorite way, is this company takes the free cash flow and reinvests it and grows that business faster. We love that. That's an awesome way to use free cash flow. The second way is that they pay us dividends, which are okay, but we got to pay taxes on that if we're not doing this inside of a tax-protected account like a Roth IRA or an IRA. So we have to pay some taxes, but at least we get the cash flow and we can reallocate it. Then the third way is way cool if they do it right, and that is they buy back their own stock with that free cash flow. Now, we only want them to do those buybacks, and this is real important, when that stock is cheaper than the intrinsic value of the company, or what we call the sticker price. So if they're buying back stock at a price that's cheaper than sticker, then that is accruing value to us as a shareholder. We're gaining more value of the company than we're losing by paying out the cash flow. If they're buying it at higher than the sticker, that's a no-no. They're basically taking money right out of our pocket. So those three ways, they're either reinvesting it and it's going to grow the company faster than it would otherwise. Second, they pay it out in dividends. Or third, they buy back the stock, but they got to do it right. So look at free cash flow. Make sure this is what I'm looking for, that free cash flow is at least the size of the net earnings. If it's not, make sure you're not paying too much for that company. All right, you guys, that's about it on free cash flow. If you like what you've seen here, then subscribe to my channel for more content, okay? I'm Phil Town, and it's time to go play.